I don't have a mic today, so please bear with me. Thank you all for coming. Please stand in attendance if you haven't already. And let's get started. Sorry. So I will call to open at 6:33. Attendance has been taken here before. We'll now do public comments. Are there any members of the public here to present the Senate? Angela.
If y'all didn't grab period box products yet, if you'd like some, please go upstairs and grab some before we close at 7 p.m. Pretty please. I love Dawn. Pretty please.
Oh, wait.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle.
And then Kay has an announcement.
Hello, everyone. So today is April 24th. If you didn't know, it's Denim Day. And I just want to share some brief history about it. Trigger warning, this is dealing with sexual assault. So Denim Day actually starts in Italy in 1992, so none of us here were born. So way back then, right? When an 18-year-old girl was raped by her 45-year-old driving instructor who was taken to her very first driving lesson. Did what he did, but she had jeans on. So she reports it. The perpetrator is arrested and prosecuted. He's convicted and sentenced to jail, but then years later he appealed the conviction, saying that it was consensual. And a statement from the court argued that because the victim was wearing jeans and that they were so tight, she had to have helped him do it and take them off. So, that was used as the alibi and to deem that it was consensual sex. And this became known as throughout Italy as the jeans alibi. So, obviously the world is enraged by the verdict, and it just picks up all throughout the world, and that's the story of that day essentially. Support the Women's Center in their, they have an event going on right now, so you guys actually have to be here. But for the rest of the week, they have events, so definitely support them, be kind to one another. Obviously recognize that UConn is a slightly dangerous campus, and sexual assault is pretty rampant here, so be cautious when you're walking with your friends or going out anywhere. Watch your drinks, just be smart, respectable, consensual adults. That's all I have to say.
At 7 p.m., one of my staff members, Moesha, is going to come down with a bunch of these little ribbons. So if you'd like to put one on it, feel free to.
Anyone else for public comment? All right, we will get straight into our voting items. The first voting item is the minutes from March 20th. Are there any questions or points of discussion? Seeing none, I move to pass the minutes by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? The minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Next up, we have minutes from March 27th, first class. Are there any questions on these minutes? Any discussion points? All right, I will pass these by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Seeing none, they're approved by unanimous consent. Our last set of minutes is April 17th. Any questions or points of discussion? All right, I will pass these minutes by unanimous consent. Yeah.
Is there just keeping it on the floor for the entire slide?
much to work with, and he's created such an amazing vision with the SOC. Full confidence in him that he's going to do an amazing job. Again, everyone knows him. He's always smiling, always passionate about anything he does. So, that's what his name is.
Hi, best friends. So my name is Angelo, for other senators and anyone new here. I've been working for USG for the past 2 years now. I was a senator my freshman year, and I stepped into the role of SOC as a freshman. The SOC has changed very drastically, and I'm looking forward to having another year to change more and to improve more. If anyone is ever interested in what we do to support tier 2 organizations, the space, USG in general, or anything, please come see me. I'd love to get you involved. I'm very excited for another year to do this, so thank you so much.
Any questions? Close the discussion? Okay, I will move to confirm into law by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Congratulations. Next one is the confirmation of Brian to the position of funding supervisor.
So, you all know and love Brian, I'm sure. We've been working with Brian in funding for a couple of years now. We felt like he was really prepared for the position to step into our role of supervisor. So, I've been working with the RUPA, I've been supervising the funding staff together. We are certain that you are all in capable hands with Brian. So, if you'd like to come up and say a few words.
Hey guys, my name is Brian. For those that don't know me, I was the guy that kept trying to ask questions when I wasn't supposed to last week at Senate. But in all seriousness, I am a junior political science major. I've been working with the funding staff for about 1.5 years now. And I really just want to take this time to thank the extraordinary service that was provided to USG and to all RSOs on campus by Stephanie and Raquel, our current funding supervisors. They have been with us for many years, and they have done such great work. And there are enormous shoes that I hope to fill with your guys' confirmation. So thank you guys so much.
Any questions? Discussion, please? All right, I will move to confirm Brian by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Congratulations, Brian. Okay, next up is confirmation of Billy Lipinsky to inventory director.
Yeah, so Billy is new to our organization, everybody. Welcome, Billy. machine, 20,000. I know a lot of people are passionate about the national care vending machines, but I wanted to keep that at the same line item amount that we had this past year, because we've been working on that over the summer. Office of the Speaker, space renovations or reservation of speeding food, center awards, center outreach events, and center education programs. These are all things we've done in the past. Numbers have changed a little more in favor of getting more meeting food, and Senate retreat line item has been removed. Judiciary supplies and election expenses are the same. Communications team. So we included a new resource hub. This was an idea we had in student services this past year, but we didn't really have the resources to work on it. This is more of a comms team project, we feel. Making an online resource hub, putting everything in one place so that students have access to mental health resources, housing resources, food and security resources, everything in one place. We're not exactly sure what kind of costs that will entail, so we put 10,000 there as a blanket for now. Table expenses are roughly the same. Promo materials, equipment upgrades, all the same for comms as well. And then act affairs, we have finals care fair, which was reduced just, I think it was 10,000 that was reduced. Free campus printing is the same, newspaper subscriptions is the same, financial literacy events. We've included from student development since the legislation passed last week that we would be dissolving student development committee. We've tried to put some of their projects on other committees instead. College talks and academic life counselors are about the same. External has an additional project this year, so we have educational door hangers, voter registration incentives, community service expenses, those are all roughly the same with merch. Then we added the professional clothing closet. So this is a project that the Dean of Students has been trying to work on with us and the Student Development Committee. It was Jess's idea, and we all think it's a really awesome idea to get Goodwill to partner with us and provide professional business clothing for interviews, job offers, job opportunities to students for free. Again, we're not really sure what the cost would look like associated with setting one of those up on our campus, but 18,000 is our blanket for now. Community Ride Day and environmental events, approximately the same. Student services has taken quite a large cut for this coming year. Husky Harvest is for any transportation needs to get to Husky Harvest. That was a project we were working on this past year. If we want to do more toiletry, pantries to provide for the harvest as well, that would come out of that line item. Period box was reduced to about 20,000. It is still at 80,000 for the full year. So we also have our tampon dispensers, our student health fair collaborations, mental health initiatives, which is a blanket for anything mental health related. So if you have any ideas or advocacy initiatives that would come out of that line item. Mental health booth co-sponsorships. We are unsure about the direction of what we would want to take that. We have one or two mental health booths in McMahon at the moment. For students looking for quiet space in McMahon. We are unsure what we would maybe want to do with that right next year, so we have any thoughts, please let us know. Snack pantry, that was a success this past semester, so we are going to do that. But the amount budgeted has reduced to 10,000. And then Plan B, which is our partnership with Shaw, we give them money so that they can go to Plan B to students. And disability mental health. We want to do some kind of advocacy initiatives related to disabled students and mental health initiatives. Somehow
there are definitely benefits to conferences if you handle them well, which I'm not sure USG can. So we are still discussing whether or not we want to do that again, which is why we didn't take it out. This is super preliminary. We reduced it by a lot, and then, or maybe just by 1,000. It was higher than that. We reduced it to move the money around, and are hoping to get feedback over the summer on people's opinions who have not already voiced their opinions on the matter. So maybe.
Or any thoughts on any projects you would really like to emphasize as far as advocacy goes?
Angela?
I would say reducing money. I know the office's president has already faced severe deficits for the most part, but whether that be through equipment upgrades within the communications team or within the office of the president, back into today's budget, the Office of Diversity Collaboration, like I said, in Gulfport. Now that orgs are finding out that you can collaborate outside Tier 2 funding and directly collaborate with USG, I think that's something that needs to be increased. That's just my opinion.
Any other questions or points of discussion?
I also just want your thoughts on what you care about most and what you want to see us do most this coming year so that I can put more money toward it.
Also keeping in mind that the new directors who were just appointed today have not had their eyes on this budget until this very moment. And so that's why a lot of the line items stayed the same, because we didn't want to pull anything away from them when they get the opportunity to take a look at what they want to do this year. I don't know this year, but yeah, so.
Yeah, question. So I brought this to your attention briefly like a month ago that they ran out of the budget for Plan B at Shaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we recently signed an MOU a week ago to increase the amount of money they get for Plan B from $10,000 per year to $11,500. We had communications with them about how much they would actually need to cover themselves for the year, and they said they needed only $1,500. They'll find the other $1,500 on their own budget. That is what they told us. So we are sticking with whatever they told us.
Angela?
Was that MOU, that was the one that we discussed at Senate a while back about
Is it
just like,
over now?
yeah, okay, and that was just signed last week, you said?
Yes.
Okay, okay, just,
Other questions or points of discussion? Or just general feedback on where you'd like to see spending be prioritized?
Yes.
and we got a round of applause from our best friend Cindy, which is
Right?
I was going to say thanks for the extra money.
No.
Appreciate you.
Jack?
Yeah, so 4% tier 2 payment promo. So obviously I know that number's not set in stone. We did run out of tier 2 funding in
Yep.
March-ish. So are you planning to curtail the funding policies in a way, or are you planning to just increase the budget to allow for clubs to request under what's the current policies?
So we want to increase the total amount so that we don't run into that issue again. We also want to be far stricter on what they can receive funding for, go through our clauses, and we're gonna be giving out far fewer exemptions. There were a fair amount of exemptions this past year, which we will not be doing.
And just add to that, I want to add that hopefully next year we plan to be a lot more stricter about enforcing the policies that we currently have, because we have a lot of policies that would save us money if we were really diligent about enforcing them, specifically deadline policies.
Yeah.
We let a lot of stuff slide, and I think cracking down on adhering to the deadline policies that are already written will save us money. And in addition, this isn't like saving us money directly, but I would like to figure out next year how to maybe do a weekly communication of how much money Tier 2 funding has voted to spend, and just kind of update that number so it's publicly accessible, so there's not some massive outrage when we randomly drop it, we ran out of money. We can point to it and say, you saw this coming the entire year. So hopefully we want to smooth out some of the anger and frustration next year.
Yes, exactly. I also talked about when I was campaigning how much I want to make that more public information. A budget itself is public information, but honestly not everybody knows how to find it. So getting it directly to their inbox is the best way to do that.
Is that to be public information?
Yes, technically anything you can ask coming up for in general is public information.
So it might be different to do. Could you like put a cap on how much you would spend per month, or is it just too difficult because some months are more heavy spending than others?
Right, so that is something we've considered. We've more so been thinking more about capping things like travel for certain organizations. Capping travel, we've thought about it. Ways to get the rec to help out club sports some more, we've thought about that as well, because we do pay pretty much the majority of the expenses for club sports. Yeah, we're thinking about some ways to do it. That's going to be a summer project.
So I was wondering if you could explain to me the funding process for the tiers for like clubs.
Yes. So I don't work directly with the funding process, but I can give you a basic overview. So yeah, so Brian, like you've worked with.
Can you pass on the mic?
Yes.
So is your question, just,
Like
I'll
how they submit requests.
for what?
Like
Yeah,
how they
so,
submit requests.
yeah, so what, trying to kind of narrow down your question, what, are you just like general questions about funding?
It's like, do clubs only get a certain amount and then have
Yes.
to ask for more later?
So for this current year, our tier 2 funding budget was $900,000. So broken down, we basically just divided by the amount of tier 2 organizations that are unfrozen on campus. This year, that entitled each club to about $15,000. Last year, it was about $25,000, but budget cuts, I understand. No, it's fine. So basically, that's just a pot of money with that club's name on it, but we hold on to it. So what happens is a club will submit a request to us, explaining exactly what it's for, why they want it, with their justifications, all the documentation we require to make sure it's for a legit reason. And if it complies with all of our funding policies, we have a weekly funding meeting where we all vote on it, and then we send it up to our full-time staff upstairs to get the final approval, and then eventually that money will be released. And so we'll keep doing that until they hit their 15,000, and then they're cut off. If certain clubs don't use their 15,000, it's kind of just if you use it, you use it. If you don't, you don't. I don't foresee any major changes to the number on the pot of money that each club is going to get this next year. Maybe some minor adjustments that we can talk about. But other than that, I assume it's going to be very similar next year to how it is this year. Any other any funding questions while I'm up here? Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was wondering if like the size of clubs affects like how much money you get. That doesn't affect
It does not. It can be a single-digit member amount of clubs. The only thing we ask from clubs is if they're fully compliant with all of the solid trainings and that they're registered as a tier 2 organization. That's really the only thing we look at when deciding the amount. The amount of money is just dependent on this number divided by the amount of registered clubs. Size of club does not impact that. Yeah.
So if they all had, I guess this past year was 25,000.
Yes, last
So
year.
if they all had $25,000, why were they so mad when they ran out?
Oh no, this past year was 15.
This previous year, as in like the year before this current one, the clubs had $25,000. This academic year, this academic year that we're in right now, there was 15,000.
So like, did they know they had a $15,000 cap?
Yes. So the reason, at least my theory as for why there was a lot of frustration when that announcement came is because we gave one announcement that we were getting close to our cap, and then one announcement that we've reached our cap, that's it. And clubs felt that they didn't really have enough turnaround time to adjust when they submitted requests, because we have kind of lengthy deadlines. We have a 6-week standard deadline that you have to request money ahead of time, just to give us time, to give full-time staff time. It's a lengthy process. So when we announced that, oh, we're out of money, that threw a lot of clubs' plans kind of into a loop, because they weren't expecting this announcement to drop very randomly and kind of disrupt everyone's 6-week mental calculations that they were making. So part of the way we want to remedy that next year, one of my ideas was to just publish the weekly amount, because every week when we vote, we'll have a number of, we have voted to hand out this much money. I want to put that number somewhere that's publicly accessible to kind of give clubs as much information as we can so they can time the requests, and that saves us as an institution from being scrutinized extremely heavily like we were this year, and it will basically just make it easier for clubs as well to kind of make their calendars too.
So they're $15,000, is it like protected per se? Like it's not there.
So each club has access to $15,000, but so
Well, I'm saying like if there's incentive to spend it all in the beginning because it could be gone later.
yes, but finding enough things that comply with our funding policies to quickly spend $15,000 on is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Not many clubs.
So 15, sorry.
No, take it away.
So if every club wanted to use $15,000 of $925,000, that would be roughly equivalent to 61 clubs getting funding. So 15,000 is kind of a blanket under the assumption that not everybody is going to request that much or want that much. So, yeah, 15,000 is the maximum, but most clubs do not hit that maximum.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, majority of clubs know about the funding, like, that USG provides funding, not all of them. And then to Brian's point that he already reiterated, you know, like, the reason why there was an upward was that, you know, you are planning stuff out 6 weeks in advance, probably, like, in the beginning of the spring semester, and at that point, the pot is already kind of empty. So, yeah, I just wanted to address those 2 points.
I also wanted to add that the previous funding supervisors and I, have been trying to increase accessibility to the funding system by going to culture centers and going to those PAC organizations.
Do you want to mention your idea?
Sure. I had brought up to Sydney that towards the beginning or a little bit after we start the academic year next fall, that we do a giant event in the ballroom where we have the funding staff come down and teach people how to put in funding requests, like a roundtable event almost. And we have the SOC staff come in and help request lockers or anything that they need for maybe weekly printing if they have agendas or other items that they want weekly printed. And then to continue onto that the SOC staff would be trained very minimal to the funding system so that they can answer basic questions and spread out all over campus to weekly or bi-weekly meetings that RSOs host. So it is an active thing that Brian probably want to continue with increasing accessibility. Super Solid Sunday was one of the biggest ones that we did. I think we covered about 200 RSOs out of the 400 active at that time. And then just keeping in mind that there are 600 RSOs registered, but only 400 active as of now.
Yes, and you had brought up an idea to go to the cultural centers and increase our accessibility. There is a history of organizations with focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion that are using less of our funding. So we want to try to increase that funding and make sure they know how to use it. So I think that was a wonderful idea. I can't take credit for that. Thank you for that. But yeah, it's definitely something we'd like to look forward to in the fall.
Any other
all the ins and outs of USG. I am positive you'll be very successful in the director role for external affairs. If you don't know Nick already, you will know him soon.
Yeah, one of the most bubbliest people I've met, coming from me, so, yeah,
Gonna do great.
great man. Everyone loves him.
All right. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you. I don't know if I deserve all of that. But
See, so humble, so humble.
thank you so much for the opportunity, and yeah, hopefully I get through, and if I do, Slack me, text me, call me, email me. I know we got budget issues, but I think there's a lot of things. But I'm confident there's a lot of amazing things we can do. But I know, no. There's a lot of things we can do at low cost. I think, especially in external. I think definitely getting students engaged on campus, something that we've already started to do this year. Amazing leadership from the past year, and I'm excited to possibly do such. Thank you.
Any questions? Points of discussion? Okay, I will move to next confirmation of the unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Congratulations. Next up,
We have the teal ribbons if anyone wants to start.
Next item is approval of the visual org chart.
Yes. So as we went over in Senate last week, we need to approve our visual org chart for our trustee student organization support team, so that so we're not frozen over the summer, so we can operate. So I will review the notable changes again. First of all, senators are placed above speaker, deputy speaker, engagement coordinator. Yay, senators. President and vice president are now under the same office, and the chief of staff reports to both president and vice president. We have cut advocacy coordinators for all of our advocacy committees on the president's office, so it's just director and deputy director now. Is that okay? We've restructured comms team, so it's the comms director, a creative director, a multimedia specialist, and then under the creative director there will be communications coordinators for DEI, external affairs, act affairs, student services. So we have somebody who is central to that specific committee's functions and advertising. SOC is the same. Funding has changed to 1 funding supervisor, 3 funding assistants, and 6 funding staff instead of the 2 supervisor, 2 assistant function we had before. Comptroller's office is the same. The diversity office is the same, and the is the same. So now I would invite Olivia to talk a bit about our accessibility.
Yeah, so last week I did sort of shoot this down at Senate, so. What I did was, so Prezi meets certain accessibility standards that PowerPoint and slides does not, so I was able to write alternative text for each group. You can't see it now, but if you were using a screen reader, you would be able to navigate and understand what this information is without visually seeing it. I also just added a line from the vice president to the chief of staff to show that there was a consolidation in that, and then also a line from the comptroller to the funding supervisor. I know these look a little small from a distance, but I swear they are compliant with the font size accessibility standards. So yeah, just making sure that it's accessible for everyone and that everyone can see it.
Any questions? Jack?
Funding supervisor, if vice president and comptroller have a disagreement, who wins?
I
Like,
think,
who is their supervisor essentially?
That's right.
Not wrong.
something we've already been doing, it's just now it's on paper,
It's just on paper.
under the comptroller. So it's not really changing that much.
Other questions? What's the discussion? Okay, I will move to pass the visual org chart by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? The visual org chart is approved. Next up, we have the back payroll report.
Yeah. Sorry guys, you're gonna hear from me, I think this entire agenda is basically me. So batch payroll, this is something we have to submit to trustee student organization support team, as our professional staff. This is the list of all of our current employees, I think it's 70 lines long. Employee IDs, their current pay rate, start date, end date. And then, as you will see, the blue columns are new things that I have filled in. So, I will explain the not returning versus returning. I indicated who has an offer to return. So if your name says not returning, but you're expecting to work again next year, like you've talked to your supervisor, you want to work again next year, your name says not returning, that doesn't mean you are not actually returning. Like you can come back. We just don't currently on paper have anything that says you will be returning. So that basically that would be like an offer letter, an email that basically says, I'm coming back this year. That's all that means. So, and this can easily be changed. This is just batch payroll. This is something we give to the pro staff so we can put you all on the correct payroll termination dates, correct pay rates, just so we don't have to pay extra for individual payroll authorizations. So if your name says not returning, we don't currently have like an offer letter or an email that says that you're coming back. I'll just have to do an additional payroll authorization after this gets passed. It's not a big deal at all. It's just, this is so they can do everything all at once. It's easier for them to understand and look at where everybody's moving to, since we do have a lot of employees. So, yeah, that's basically all there is. Everybody's position, if we've already talked to you, indicated you're changing positions or you're already confirmed to be staying in your role, that's basically what this means. New employees are not included in this. This is just for this past year.
Questions? All right, I will move to pass this by hand vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 17-0 to 1. Okay, next up we have approval of the USG bylaws.
This is me, yes, we have to so lovely Josh has updated all of the bylaw amendments that we've made over the last month. We've had judiciary take a review as well. So this says revised April 17th. This is our most updated version of the bylaws. Yeah, it's literally just the bylaws as they stand. Any amendments we made over the course of the semester that we haven't integrated into our bylaws yet have now been integrated. Thank you to Josh for doing that for me. He's not here actually. Never mind.
Still think of that.
Any questions? Any points of discussion? Okay, I will move to pass the USG bylaws by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the bylaws pass by unanimous consent. Next up, we have the statement of position regarding the undergraduate student governance endorsement of Dr. Khalon to the position of the student at the University of Connecticut, and I will turn it over to him.
Almost took myself out good enough. So for all that don't know, Dr. Vankamamidi has been serving as our interim student for the past year and a half now, or 2 years, something like that. It's been a long time. She's done a lot of great work. For everyone that was at the Senate on February 7th, I'm sure that you felt her passion. I'm sure that you felt who she was as a person, how much she cares about the position. She is currently interviewing to become our permanent dean of students, and I just wanted to send this to her if it passes, saying that students do want her in the position and students actually do care about what she cares about. She is very vocal about supporting BIPOC students on academic probation.
She's a very passionate person. I have been meeting with her and going to be meeting with her bi-weekly now. And I'm very excited to start building a connection with her and integrating that into USG. So I'm hoping to look for everyone's support in passing this. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a bunch of sponsors. Like a bunch of sponsors, and if you like the ad, I'd be delighted to add your name to the sponsor list. So this is just a way to show your direct support for it. Any
Any
questions?
questions?
No, just have,
Yeah, Angela, let me send something in the Senate spot.
Yeah, I will send something. If you heart it, I will add you right to it. All right.
Are there any questions? Points of discussion? Okay, we will move to pass this by a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand high. Opposed? Abstentions? This passes 24-0 to 1. Next up is a motion to approve 2750 to the Vietnamese Student Association for the funding staff line item for tuition registered student organization funding. Thank you, Jack, for that motion. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so, I guess I probably should have added, but this is for 23. This is not dipping into our budget for this upcoming year, because this was a request submitted in December 20, fiscal year 23. So essentially, what this is the RSO submitted a request, they did everything right, and then we as an organization messed up. So usually what will happen is there's this whole process that called the judiciary appeal that we'll do, and we'll hear it, and then we'll be like, yes, we want to give them funding. Now, in this case, this funding is retroactive, so it needs to go through Senate as well. And the reason for this is retroactive funding is not good. It means that it means essentially that our organization did not approve these funds, and thus it looks really bad if we don't approve funds, and then we're like, oh yeah, actually we want to fund that after the fact. That's why this needs to go through Senate, because this isn't a good thing to do. We don't want to do it all the time. The only time that we really do it, because it is against our own policies to do, is when we as an organization mess up. This is one of those examples of times that we as an organization messed up. The Vietnamese students, their organization did everything right, and we essentially did not fund their request because there was just some mistakes on the funding staff side. Are there any questions about anything I just said?
Any questions?
Okay.
What was the mistake?
So essentially, the funding staff essentially sent this request back to the RSO, delaying its funding when it didn't need to get sent back. So procedurally, if the request doesn't need to get sent back, and it does, like that's a problem on our end. That's a procedural error. Any other questions?
Any points of discussion? Brian?
I'd like to say, just kind of adding my perspective from it, whenever funding staff makes a mistake and clubs end up losing funding or it ends up impacting a club negatively, we almost always do everything we can to get that club that money. The retroactive request being what it is, use your best judgment, but I'd like to say that when we mess up, we always do our best to make it right.
I will also add that the current funding supervisors agree with this retroactive.
That too.
Yeah, Angela.
I would also like to add that Jack actually spoke to me a little bit about this privately, and we discussed the implications of not passing this. It's like the organization pay for their equipment on their own, and that is a heavy burden on a group of students, and it would be nice to be able to make this work with this particular group of students.
Any other questions or points of discussion? All right, we'll move into my hand vote. All those in favor of approving this retroactive funding stuff? Opposed?
says that you can't hire your boyfriends or girlfriends. And so Ben put it back up this year, and there was a lot of concern about it, which is very valid, and that is why we didn't want to vote on it. And I think that it's super important that things like this are being written by people that are currently in the organization. So when we do revisit it, it will be an organized effort. Perhaps maybe senators can write it, and we can all make sure that everyone feels really comfortable with what's in it. But we wanted to do this to explain what I interpreted as the spirit of the legislation, and then also to give you guys an opportunity to clear the air and like put on the minutes here like what your issues with it were. If you want to do that, no one has to, but just kind of give people a space to talk about it, because I know there was a ton of conversation organization-wide about the legislation, and we just wanted to give you all like a space for that. Am I missing anything? That's why we did this.
I mean, yeah, essentially just to have everyone's input on it, and just explain exactly what this is. It is a state law that essentially USG employees are state employees because of the way like it's a tier 3 board, and it's just like in that little like gray area of state employees. And all state employees have to follow, everyone just follow the law, but state employees have to follow the code of ethics. So essentially we've been following this state code of ethics. It was just never written down formally anywhere in USG bylaws or our constitution. So there was an instance where a certain member of the board had affiliations with the organization and could not write the MOU nor be in the room when had to recuse themselves in the vote. So it's standard practice, same practice that funding staff uses and when they go through tier 2 funding policies, like if you're a board member on the board, can't be in the room, not recuse yourselves, amongst probably other things. So yeah, this is also giving some, I guess, cushion for like if you were to have violated this in the past and you just weren't aware because it wasn't made clear in our bylaws or our constitutions, because this is in layman's terms, because legal writing is very difficult to decipher. So just making it easier for us so we don't get sued. Okay. I kind of took the reins. I don't know if you know.
No, that's was really what I understood to be the spirit of it, which is like, and I also wanted to just clarify when we do write it, my interpretation of the law, and obviously I'm not a lawyer, so feel free, like, we're going to be talking to Krista and Brenda, our like adult tiers, whatever, the like the people that know what's going on. We're going to talk to them too, when if someone is passionate about this and wants to write it, I encourage you to talk to them. But for my interpretation, from what my understanding was, is that if you are part of an organization, any organization, you can help facilitate a partnership. But when there is a decision, a final decision about, okay, we're shaking hands on this, we're going to put this in an MOU about the money, there has to be a third party present just to make sure you're not like doing something wrong. It's like not a conflict of interest. So I guess that is like one of the things I really wanted to say, because I don't think that we should ever be discouraging people from like working with cultural orgs. I know we've worked with Shaw when we've had employees in student services that also work for Shaw. And in those situations, I would just be present when the final like deal on the money was being made. So that is like my interpretation. I know when we talked to Krista, that seemed to be her interpretation as well. I don't think that this did that justice.
Yeah, I'll now open the floor to questions and discussion points. We'll go to Angela, then Dan.
I'm not sure, like Gloria said, we aren't all lawyers, so I brought copies of the actual law in case people actually wanted to like figure out what it means.
Good job.
I'm gonna like give one to every row.
Because typically like standard practice for legislation is you add in, like when you write an essay, you add in your sources into the essay. So for a legislation, especially pertaining to a state law, you would expect to have like footnotes directly saying this is where it's coming from. Did you highlight it too?
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
So is this the exact legislation you wrote 2 years ago, or did you guys change it?
It was edited talk before it went to internal, and I also had talked to Anya, and I told Ben about some of the concerns, and then he drafted the statement of purpose as an effort to alleviate the concerns. I don't think it helped. I think it might have made it worse. Yeah, which is again why we're scrapping it. Yeah.
So, and then the other parts of it, is it just basically for like having a third party when like conflict of interest happens?
So
That's not what this says.
yeah, right. So basically, like standard practice for MOUs. I don't know how long it's for, but like sometimes we pass MOUs in Senate, sometimes we pass, most times we pass it in the board. So it's always being looked at by a couple set of eyes. It's not just one person. Okay, I'm gonna agree to do this with the organization. Like we bring it to the board, but the elected officials of us as well as the directors, or to Senate, or all you guys look at the MOU. We passed a couple MOUs a couple Senates ago. So it's never just being looked at by one person, and one person isn't always unanimously making that decision to spend state board funds. But here it's just outlining if I was to have a conflict of interest, like I'm a board member of a particular group, Gloria or Sydney would have to be there to write the MOU, because I couldn't write it myself, so they have to be there to write the MOU, and then when the vote goes on for us to pass the MOU, I would have to recuse myself and leave the room, and you guys would vote.
I think the recusal to me seems like the most important part, because if you're not like asserting dominance over the room, like better pass this. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
So we talked about this a little bit in commission, and most of those felt like it was a little bit targeting minorities, just because of the organization part. And oftentimes, like when it comes to ex officio senators, especially for our cultural senators, and like NAACP had ex officio senators, for each have one. Like they would be voting for something that they want to pass, especially if they wrote it. And recusing themselves felt a little bit like against what we do as the organization, especially if we are here to represent other voices. I think stopping people from being able to consult, like through using their voice, was a little bit, we felt like against the board, and we did think it was very targeting minorities. And we understood a good portion of it, and like you mentioned before about relationships and stuff like that. So it was like this, like you said, was supposed to actually drawing board, and you said like we didn't like how the branding went, and we just focused on like the specifics instead of trying to, I guess, make it broader and reach out to other orgs, because everybody was learning from other orgs. And by signing up, especially for our elected officials, like you said, like hey, like she was elected, she ran on a platform, people know who she is, she knows who she represents and what she supports. So if you're an elected official and now you're not allowed to support like who you are, basically what you represent, it feels very fair to what USG stands for as voices for the school.
So a brief counterpoint to this that I want to bring up is as a minority student or whatnot, you can do everything except for vote, and you have to recuse during the vote. You can discuss, you can work with the organization, you just can't vote on the. You can't take official action, I believe is the correct wording, unless you submit some sort of statement. So, if you're not, it seems, at least in my unprofessional opinion, that like recusal is necessary in the sense that you can't vote or take official action, but you can still do everything that you would do, and still negotiate and still like do everything that you would do as a part of the board, except vote or like sign an MOU or like sign a purchase request. I think the main kind of problem that you could run into with, depending on your determination of what you think the law is funding staff. Because funding staff isn't a public meeting, it kind of throws it out of whack of whether or not a funding staff member should be there when an organization that they're a part of is being talked about, and that could cause some problems that you brought up. But other than that case, I don't really see it coming up, other than you just cannot physically vote for stuff that for an organization that you're from.
And I think something important to say is, like, I just want to reiterate what Tay said before, is that as example, the graduate student,
Yeah.
that this doesn't apply to them because they have something in their constitution that says, like, we're not actually state employees. So there isn't just one take. So there's a lot of different ways that we can go about fighting conflicts of interest. And I think it is important for us as an organization to discuss what is a conflict of interest for us. What do we think that our role should be? And I think this should be more of a collective conversation, because, like you said before, it is a gray area.
Why is it that we're taking away the influence of students that are in like cultural clubs or cultural organizations, especially considering in the voting situation that USG is pretty lacking in diversity, especially Black and Latino students, so we're taking away their voice and their vote. Yes, they can talk about it and advocate and argue, but when it comes to actually making decisions, it's kind of like, well, we have to take care of that.
I mean, so in that sense, like, I'm also like, I understand the purpose of the legislation, like when there's very obvious like conflicts of interest, but I also recognize that like we are at, this is a student government, we have ex officio seats, we have seats that you're based on either your school, your college, your, district, or your ethnicity, so you're gonna ultimately be biased, okay? I'm gonna make sure McMahon has clean water, because I know they don't, even though Norton does, whatever the case, but I should have flipped that, but I also, I'm really like curious as to looking into other like schools in Connecticut and looking how they operate, considering that like Eastern, they would follow these same rules. So I think that's a good place for us to start. What exactly they do for conflict of interest, but I do see your point, Kamara, and that's something that we talked about we talked a lot about it in commission, because that was the biggest concern. And even when I saw the legislation initially, I'm like, this feels very targeted. But it's a difference between intent and impact.
It doesn't necessarily have to be targeted, but what is the outcome?
Right.
That's what matters, and it seems like it's not what's needed.
Obviously this, like we mentioned before, that this legislation clearly needs some work, and I want to make sure that when we do present it at Senate, that it's to the liking of everybody. So if you are really interested in this legislation and working on it, or like reworking on it, Kyle can like send a Slack or something, and you can like heart it, and we can get like a channel and a group going. But like we said, we recognize your concerns. Obviously, there's some stuff that needs to be worked on. So just keep that in mind. That this isn't the final workings of anything.
I also want to add that on page 8 it says that unpaid service as an officer or director of a nonprofit entity is exempt from the definition of business which and then ... associated. So senators are unpaid positions unless they hold a director position. So they'd be exempt from having to recuse themselves or abstain from the vote.
Yeah, this isn't about legislation. This is like specifically about MOUs that directors, deputy directors would be writing. And we can talk about like recusal and things like that. Like, I'm just using this as an example. When Sydney presented the budget at GovBoard, like, and because obviously like none of us can vote here anyways. But when Sydney presented the budget, at GovBoard, she abstained when we were voting on it, and that's like kind of general practice. Not everyone does it though. I just think it's a good idea for us to have a conversation about what conflict of interest means to us.
Because besides like the cultural aspect of it and the RSO aspect, there are other conflicts of interest that are laid out. So immediate family members, significant other, which we have had trouble with in the past. Not just the past administration, but the administration before that. So just making sure we have something outlining that this is not appropriate, it's not conducive to a efficient workplace environment. Does anyone else have any other questions or wants a discussion?
I just want to reiterate that maybe we should cut it down to like the family and relationships. Because voting is the most important part, and especially for senators, like this is the only contribution that we really can give. If he can't vote, like this is
But I'm not speaking for this, but for my interpretation is that it's not, unless you write the MOU, you don't have to recuse yourself. It's about like the people that wrote it aren't supposed to vote on it. So if a senator is part of the organization that they're writing it on, but they didn't write the MOU, they can vote in favor of it if they want
So
to.
it doesn't have to do with any legislation?
This is only about money. Like this is just specifically about the way that money changes hands and making sure there's like oversight so that if I was on mock trial and I'm like, oh, we're gonna do a partnership with the 10 members of mock trial, we're gonna give them $5,000, that someone would say, Lori, don't do that. Like that's, I really, right? Right. So I feel like we need to figure out like the specific money part, because there should never be a reason why the senators wouldn't be allowed to vote on something that they didn't even write. That
So
doesn't
only
make
funding right from MOUs, right?
no,
No.
like directors write MOUs.
So directors right.
This is mostly pertaining to like Lauren said, directors and deputies and people like.
Our partnership with Shaw for the sexual health fair that we were gonna have, Claire isn't here, so I'm not trying to like name drop her, but she works for Shaw too. And when she was deciding what to do with the money, I just came to the meeting where they were discussing that. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then I wrote the MOU instead of her writing it. But she still did all the facilitating.
And obviously like the legislation doesn't really clarify that.
Yeah, the
which is
legislation was
why-
poorly worded.
Yeah, so moving forward, when we rewrite this, we'll definitely like clarify that stuff to make sure that people understand like where their rights lie.
And what I'm saying isn't like word of God, like I said, it's a gray area. So if you guys have different interpretations or like the opinions you have on this are really important.
But something that's like pretty key is like we keep saying interpretations, like if this is a law, we should probably get the black and white, this is what you can do, what you can't do, because you know, we shouldn't be doing anything based off like our interpretations on
Right.
anything.
Which is what this was.
Right, so that's essentially when we go back to the drawing board, it would be very cut and clear, and then, you know, we'll take into consideration like other schools and all that stuff to make something that doesn't feel like it's stifling diverse voices, because that will not be happening.
Andrew, I'm sorry, you've had your hand up for so long.
I just wanted to add one of my concerns was that when it comes to like conflicts of interest regarding like contact, I'm a part of the contacts of organizations that I'm not affiliated with. I just like the email updates. And most RSOs are unpaid service, and they might write an MOU, and they might be a senator also. So it's like that conflict of interest, that's where it's a gray area for me at least, and what defines a conflict of interest when it comes to unpaid service from RSOs collaborating with the Office of Diversity or Tier 2 funding, for example.
That's
my
great, it's a great point.
So I do want to stress the importance of this legislation. Not necessarily in this format. I think it's pretty clear we need to change the format, but I do think that this needs to be done because not everyone knows about this and wants to read it. And we've had problems in the past. I know we talked about the significant other problem, but then we also impeached our comptroller like 4 years ago for being corrupt. Because they essentially would just give money to the clubs that they liked, which clearly breaks this, but that's kind of the thing that this is trying to stop. It's trying to stop, you know, the comptrollers from doing that and just giving money to the clubs that they like. So yeah, it is important though.
And I definitely agree with, like, I would not ever be giving money to clubs that I like. There's a fair process. I will be following. I would also like to, and I would also like to emphasize this is definitely just about more so the money than anything. Because let's say, like, so I'm president of an organization. I write an MOU for my organization I can make up some random number and say, I need $5,000
not being voted
is
on.
written, and we don't pass it.
We're
and
not
it's
passing it.
not to be in the bylaws. So they're not-
It's a discussion.
No, I'm just saying, like, if it's not in the bylaws right now, so it's not, if there's a law, but it doesn't mean that.
So the law is the law. We have to follow it, whether it's in our bylaws or not. It trumps us.
Right.
So now that it's not, and this was not before Matt should be passed in.
Right.
So there was no reason to send it to voting tonight. But currently, if someone breaks the law, the measures of dealing with it are a little bit more punitive than they would be if the bylaw had been passed, because it's less of an internal situation and more the only recourse is to report them to the state, impeachment. So that was, if we do end up rewriting this and putting it in the bylaws, it makes it a little bit easier to not like fire, impeach, or imprison someone for breaking the law. Yeah, not that you get in prison, I don't know.
Those are all ifs, no? That's like if we decide to report them to the law.
If we do. And
if it is,
if you catch them doing something wrong, these are all ifs, right? Like,
and if this
if
was,
someone does a conflict of interest, I don't think any of us are planning on doing that.
like, if this wasn't the bylaw,
Mhm.
does that mean we get to not report them now?
That's a good question. I think you can report people no matter what. I think if it's in the bylaws, there's more steps of like, I don't really know, to be honest. I didn't write this. But I don't really know what would happen. Do you know what would happen?
Yeah.
Don't you just, you would just be like, oh.
So obviously, like, this is the bylaws. You can still report it to the law. Like, there's nothing that we can do about that. Really, what this should be is more like, it should be a digestible version of the law, so that people actually know what we can and cannot do legally. You can still get reported to the law no matter what is in here. In fact, if you were to break conflict of interest egregiously enough to, warrant a discussion of this bylaw, you would probably be impeached and removed. It's not great to. It's not if that was severe enough that happened and people are trying to get you, then yeah, bad. Now, one thing that is to note is that it's not just us that can enforce this law. It's any person can sue anyone for whatever reason. So this organization does get opened up to legal exposure because of this, and you do yourselves if you break this law, no matter whether this passes or not. So.
Kamara, did you have something?
I did. I heard us saying the word interpretation law. Are we interpreting what the law says, or?
Well, this was an interpretation on the law. Like, there's no work cited,
So
there's
why
no
don't we-
sources on here,
Why
but
don't we ask a lawyer then?
right.
We're gonna ask her to bring the plan.
Or
She's our, or anyone. Sorry.
with JD, preferably an attorney, perhaps. And like I said,
I thought she was our legal counsel.
she's our list.
Oh. I thought she was a
Yeah, so my question is like, so these are the laws, these are the rules, we need to follow these rules.
Yeah.
No normal person can actually read and understand these rules.
Yeah.
So we are trying to put it in layman's terms in a bylaw so that people can understand them and actually follow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're gonna try now. I don't know.
Still talk to Rinda because general counsel won't respond to us. They'll only respond to us. So, and Chris, talk to Rinda because you're not going to get a response if you don't do that. That means it's annoying, but that's the way it works. So.
Wait, I could be totally wrong. So this is serving two purposes. One, as like a cushion so that we don't have to go to the state if someone does something wrong, right?
Kind of, but except you probably still, like Jack said, you're probably, if you do something like this, you're gonna get removed from the board, probably no matter what. And then it would be like,
This is just
discretionary whether or not you're working with the state.
Okay, and then the second purpose would just be to like easily understand what the law is. So why could this not be more like a conversation like in training?
I would just training that's muffled. I mean, some people also don't pay attention in trainings. We have trainings that we have to take, like to come to UConn. I zoomed to know, cameras on, but I don't know who really sat through and listened to all of that. So having it be in the law, it's like it's written. it'll be something we mention, but like it's written down somewhere for us, because like a couple of the other bylaws that we passed, like with removing someone, that's already standard practice. Like we have to do a written, a verbal, and then they can be removed. But it wasn't written anywhere. It wasn't written in the bylaws or the Constitution. So now it's written so that everyone understands that, and it's not just like a telephone thing. Hey, this is how you do it, and it could also get jumbled up if that's just something in training. So it just helps, at that level. Also making the organization more organized. Students did make the student government. It's been around like 150 years, so obviously needs some tweaking. And it's just something that helps add to the valid foundation of the work.
Any other questions, points of discussion? Yes, Evan.
I was gonna say, with something like this, wouldn't it be easier if it was split up? Just because the language in this is kind of confusing. It's a lot to try and fit into one piece of legislation overall. And it seems like every section of student government gets affected differently. So wouldn't it be better if we had one piece of legislation probably specifying what is a conflict of interest based off the law for each specific member? Because not every member of USG gets paid. And not every legislation is going to result in a financial conversation. So maybe having this as two separate pieces of legislation, one that outlines what a conflict of interest is, and then one that actually outlines what the consequences of those are. It kind of prevents anything like this from happening, which, well, could be later on interpreted as, offensive to like minorities or to anybody just trying to do something for their own community.
Definitely. And thank you. And like, again, I guess I'm gonna reiterate this for like this fourth time, but if any of you feel interested in fighting this legislation and like talking to people, please go ahead.
I'll definitely be working on it and like drafting it, and whoever's welcome to, whoever wants to help is welcome to, and also leveraging commission with senators. So if you're feeling up for it on whatever late night we have it on, to come and help us tweak this, you're more than welcome. But then it'll also be brought to the Senate floor, where you're all gonna look at it and then be able to make amendments if you feel that something isn't to your liking. So we're also working on a code of conduct for the organization, as we do not have one, and it has put us in various situations. So yes.
Any other questions, points of discussion? Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for letting us talk about it.
Okay, that was our last discussion item. The only announcement tonight is that, as you know, this is our last academic year. So I want to thank all of you for a great year. And really looking forward to seeing much next year.
Please grab these period products.
Your mom needs them, your aunt needs them, your cousin, bring them
Please fill out the form. And please, there's an SOC, so if you go up the staircase, go down the hall on the left. Please. Oh.
It's just for you. And what you do when you have it is not like, right, there you go.
For a moment, all who go here need who go here, right? Yeah, like your whole family's enrolled and they all leave.
You want this back? If you want